All right, the purpose of this video is to offer you a persuasive argument as to why you should consider purchasing a minivan instead of a 5 or 7-seater SUV if you have, I would say 2 children, but I guess 1 child could also suffice. And my reasons will be in order of importance and persuasiveness. So if you're convinced after the first reason, you can turn it off and move on with your life. Okay, here's the main reason. If you're parked in the garage or if you're parked in the driveway at your house, you can say to your 2 or 3-year-old, go get in the van, I'll be there in a minute. And you can open the door and your child, whether they have a car seat or a booster or whatever, can go and get in the car. We just got done mountain bike riding, so it's kind of trashed. Okay, so why can you say that if you own a minivan, and why can you not say it if you own an SUV? And it's very simple. The main characteristic between a SUV and a minivan is a sliding door. And because it's a sliding door, you can use a fob, and they don't offer that on normal hinged doors. The second, less important attribute is that it has a low ride height, a low ground clearance, and so it is a low, flat floor, whereas almost all SUVs, especially modern day ones, they sit higher, and normally you don't have as flat of a floor, and so there's a greater likelihood for the child to trip as they get in and out. And those 2 attributes diminish the time that you have to wait before you can tell your children, go get in the car right before you go to the store or go to school or whatever. And if you don't understand the importance of that, then you're probably not a parent yet, or maybe you haven't thought about it. But when you can be in your kitchen or your living room or whatever, and you can tell your child, hey, here's your water bottle, go jump in the car, I'll be there in a minute, and you trust them not to run into the road and all those sorts of things, oh my gosh, it's such a game changer. You can pack your bags and finish whatever you want to do in the kitchen before you're trying to get out the door. Your child's in the car, they've already buckled or partially buckled or whatever. It is a total game changer. It's almost as significant as the phase when you're out of diapers or when your child starts to sleep through the night. In terms of getting out the door, it's an absolute game changer. So that is an argument enough for me to go from something like this to something like that. But here's some additional arguments if you're still not convinced. Okay, because it's a sliding door, you do not ever have to worry. Because it's a sliding door, you don't ever have to worry about your child opening this door and hitting a car next to it, whether it's your own car in your driveway or it's at a public place. Second thing is, even if you can trust your child not to bang into the door handles are getting so high and the doors are getting so heavy because they're loaded with things that even older kids struggle to reach up and grab the handle and open it carefully. If it's windy, that greatly increases the risk. Additionally, you have the risk that when they go to close the door, it slams on their fingers or it slams on the fingers of their siblings. And in this case, it basically can't happen. I mean, it could, but basically it moves so slow and it has pinch protection, even something as old as 2005. And so the safety is greatly increased for pinched fingers. So the other big advantage is that the seats are removable. If you have a Chrysler product, they're very quickly removable. They stow inside the seat in the floor, but on a Odyssey or a Sienna or something like that, you can remove these seats in about 15 seconds, whereas on every single SUV that I'm aware of, the seats cannot be removed. Additionally, on most of them, at least the Hondas and the Toyotas that I know of, these fold down into the trunk area, the tubbed floor. And so within about 60 seconds, you can convert a 7-seater, this is an 8-seater, an 8-seater minivan into a completely flat floor, and you can do a lot with that. You can move, you can move furniture, you can move lawn equipment, you can collect stuff from Home Depot, whatever. So they're very versatile. The other big advantages with the trunks, because it has a low ground clearance, and sorry, I can't show it to you at the moment, but when you open this hatch, you have something like a little bathtub in there, and you don't get that on an SUV because the ground clearance is higher. And on an SUV, you normally get a flat floor. And so when you put things there and then you brake or you corner, those items typically fall underneath the seat and they kind of go everywhere. This tub keeps everything really well contained, and it's the same tub that the seats fold into. And if you've not ever transported groceries and apples and oranges and kid stuff and water bottles and all of that, you may not appreciate the difference that is, but it's a very significant difference. So you have to consider the real difference between a minivan and an SUV is basically sliding doors, the shape at the back, and ground clearance. So regarding ground clearance, we've owned this car 5 years. We are mountain bikers, rock climbers, hikers, paddlers. We put the kayaks on top, we put the bikes on the back, we put all the hiking gear and climbing gear inside. We have never had a ground clearance problem. We go into the Cohutta Wilderness, which is old Forest Service roads, not well maintained, huge bumps. We've really never had a problem. 99% of people who are using a all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive SUV like this are really not taking it to its potential in any way, shape, or form. The last thing I'll talk about, and this is essentially the least important of all of them, is that people have this feeling that like minivans represent, you know, parenthood, and so it's a bad vibe. And I'll just say two things to that. First off, not anymore. The vast majority of so-called soccer moms are buying, you know, 5-seater or 7-seater SUVs. And so even though SUVs look cooler at the moment than minivans, they are on track to be soccer mom vans. And I gave my boss at VW a hard time about that all the time. Anyway, the last thing is that if you're not proud to be a parent, if you're trying to like shed the parent vibe, then I would say you got some other things mixed up, because having kids is incredible and amazing. It's the most important job you'll ever have in your life. It's the most wonderful responsibility and privilege and blessing. There are people all over the world whose bodies cannot create babies, or, you know, whatever, and they adopt or they get, you know, all of these in vitro things to try and have babies. Children are a blessing. And if you have some and you don't see it that way, you need to go back to the drawing board and really think about that. And I understand no one wants to shed their youth and start to look like an old person. I get that. And I'm being a little bit more serious than I know some people are regarding the minivan look. But seriously, being a parent is amazing. And I'm not saying you have to embrace that to the nth degree, but you shouldn't be ashamed of a minivan, because you shouldn't be ashamed of your family. Anyway, that's my sales pitch. If you haven't tried it, I would strongly encourage you to find a friend who's got a minivan and see how fast your kids can get in and out without tripping, without falling. And believe me, when your 2 or 3-year-old can go to the car while you finish up in the kitchen before you head out for the day, it's incredible. And if you don't know what that's like, then you need to try it. Anyway, it's my sales pitch. You ready to go?
I'm ready to go to the imagination station.
Let's do it.